Beer Trivia Challenge: How to impress your friends with beer facts. I hope in the next 15 minutes or so you find the information unique, interesting, and intriguing, and perhaps even somewhat educational. We are not medical doctors and we give no medical advice, but merely bring you information. Please consult medical professionals for medical advice. Did you know humans all over the world consume 50 billion gallons of beer each year? That McDonald's sells beer on its menu in countries such as France, Germany, Portugal, and South Korea. Every year, Germany organizes the biggest party beer festival in the world, Oktoberfest. About 6 million people visit this festival. How about beer pong was a game invented in the 50s? Tell your teenagers that. The earliest known building on the site of Downing Street was a brewery. The world's most expensive beer to date is Allsup's Arctic Ale, retailing at $503,300. This beer was brewed in 1875 for an Antarctic expedition and recently sold on eBay. In the United States, the beer industry plays a vital role in its economy. Every year, the country generates profits of over $100 billion from beer alone. Some medical facts you might find interesting is that drinking beer reduces the risk of kidney stones. While extreme intake of alcohol could put anyone at a greater risk of kidney stones, the moderate consumption of beer has shown to potentially prevent kidney stones. At this point, it may sound like one of the beer facts can't be true, but beer does have more medicinal effects. In the right amount and circumstances, beer is good for the heart and blood vessels due to its alcohol content. For the average person, an intake of less than 30 grams of alcohol per day lowers the risk of cardiovascular disease by 25% compared to non-drinkers. Drinking beer also reduces the risk of ischemic stroke. An ischemic stroke starts when an artery in the brain gets blocked. Small amounts of alcohol can be beneficial for patients who had a stroke caused by a clot blocking a blood vessel. However, for all beer's medicinal effects, it's still best to consult your doctor if you have any underlying conditions. Drinking beer significantly lowers the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Beer may be made of sugar, but drinking low amounts lowers a person's risk of type 2 diabetes by 25%. Researchers observed that alcohol increased a person's adiponectin levels. Adiponectin is a hormone that improves insulin sensitivity, protecting the body against developing type 2 diabetes. Drinking beer increases good cholesterol. Moderate alcohol consumption increases HDL cholesterol in the blood. In detail, HDL cholesterol acts as the scavenger in the bloodstream, eradicating harmful cholesterol. Hence, high HDL levels provide many benefits to the average human body. Beer intake protects the body against radiation. According to a study in Japan, beer drinkers reduced their risk of chromosomal damage from radiation compared to non-beer drinkers. Also, small consumption of beer reduces the risk of ulcers. Your hangover might not convince you otherwise, but the right amount of beer can also protect your stomach from ulcers. A small intake of 75 grams per week of beer reduces this risk, caused by the bacteria known as H. pylori. Beer consumption reduces brain cerebral oxidation, caused by aluminum. Different salts of aluminum have been reported to accelerate oxidative harm to biomolecules. On the other hand, there is a specific molecule that potentially inhibits aluminum toxicity in the brain. This particle is called silicone, and beer has tons of it in the form of silicic acid. The expiration date of the beers can be extended. A well-stored beer generally lasts from 6 to 9 months beyond the expiration date on its label. In the right temperature, refrigerated beer can last up to 2 years beyond its expiration date, and sometimes a lot longer than that. Did you know on June 22nd, 1977, Stephen Petrosino secured a Guinness World Record for drinking 1 liter of beer in 1.3 seconds? Wow! John Evans bagged the Guinness World Record in June 2010 for stacking 237 pints of beer on his head. Evans secured this record despite being diabetic with only one functioning eye. The Guinness Book of World Records was conceived by Hugh Beaver, executive director of the Guinness Brewing Company. He came up with the idea of creating an authoritative source for pubgoers to settle their disputes about the record of a particular phenomenon. Commercial models in the U.S. are not allowed to show that they are drinking. U.S. law prohibits the promotion of alcohol consumption on national television. That's why most beer commercials would only show people clinking their bottles. Definitely one of the beer facts you never knew of. The largest museum dedicated to beer making is in Altenburg, Germany. The largest beer producer in the world is Belgian corporation Anheuser-Busch InBev. This company owns about 400 beer brands in 50 countries: Budweiser, Corona, Stella Artois, Beck's, Hoegaarden, and Leaf, among others. International Beer Day is celebrated on the first Friday of August. The first beer day was held in 2007 in the United States. By 2012, the holiday was celebrated in 50 countries in more than 200 cities around the world. In the Middle Ages, the hearty clinking of robust beer tankards supposedly established that their contents had not been poisoned, the assumption being that the merry clanking of tankards against each other would lead to beer spilling from one vessel into the other. It was a way of ensuring that your drinking companions weren't harboring evil intentions and trying to kill you off. I bet you didn't know that the perfect beer foam is formed on a cold beer between 42 and 46 degrees. If beer is too cold, it doesn't make enough foam, and if it's too warm, it makes too much. If you like to enjoy your beer with the perfect head, then it's especially important that the beer glasses are absolutely clean and free from grease and fingerprints. Fat residues in a beer glass have a direct effect on the surface tension of the carbon dioxide bubbles that make up the beer's head. The more fat there is in a beer glass, the weaker the tiny carbon dioxide bubbles will be. The foam won't grow to any size and will collapse only after a short time. Glasses should always be cleaned with hot water and a grease-dissolving detergent. After washing, it's imperative that the detergent is rinsed away using clear, cold water because the detergent has the same detrimental effect on the beer that fat has. Beer cans debuted way back in 1933. 90 years this year. 7.3 million liters of beer were served at Oktoberfest in 2015. The fact that Oktoberfest is held mostly in September is one of those head scratchers. But one thing that makes perfect sense is that a little more than 2 weeks from mid-September to October in 2015, Germans and beer-loving tourists from all over the world drank 7.3 million liters of beer during the Oktoberfest celebrations. Smutty Nose's brewery name came from a creepy backstory. It's not often obvious that your favorite brewery is named after. For example, Dogfish is not named after the sea creature named Dogfish. It's actually a place in Maine where founder Sam Calagione spent his summers, and that place was named after the sea creature. Smutty Nose is named after an island off the New Hampshire coast where a double murder happened in the 1870s. Every American craft brewery combined employs fewer people than Anheuser-Busch. And one for laughs, hangover in Norwegian is directly translated to carpenters in the head. You can use beer as a conditioner. Apparently good quality brews will leave your locks silky and soft. The sugar in beer is said to supercharge your plants. Beer sprinkler, anyone? Lidded beer steins for your health? Raise your hand if you thought the lid was for keeping out flies. As it turns out, stein lids were created to protect beer drinkers from contracting the plague. Beer science. We all know that beer is amazing, but did you know that the bubbles can actually create a gravity-defying loop? Researchers at Stanford discovered that this occurs as the bubbles head up in the liquid center, where drag from the glass is less and the bubbles head down on the outside edge of the glass. Neat, right? About 162,000 pints of Guinness beer are wasted each year due to mustaches. The total cost of beer wasted on mustaches of Guinness drinkers is approximately $506,000. There is a beer brewed from yeasts raised in the beard of its brewer. This beer belongs to the Rogue Brewery, located in Oregon. Its creator wanted to test the sensory profile that the yeast could provide to beer, since each yeast has unique characteristics depending on the way it is conditioned. A Buddhist temple in Thai was built with over 1 million recycled beer bottles. Wat Pa Maha Chedi Khao, also known as the Temple of 1 Million Bottles, was built in approximately 2 years and took about 1.5 million bottles to build this temple. Women account for 25% of total beer consumption in volume in the United States and 37% of total consumption of craft beer. The most varieties of beer on tap are 369 draft beers. This record was obtained by the Raleigh Beer Garden in Raleigh, North Carolina, USA. Verified November 21st, 2015. Road trip, anyone? And now for some sad news. A 15-foot high tidal wave of beer killed 8 people in London. The London beer flood of 1814 occurred when barrels of porter flooded the poor neighborhood of St. Giles Rookery. On the afternoon of October 17, 1814, one of the iron rings around the tank broke. About an hour later, the entire tank burst, releasing hot fermenting beer with such force that the back wall of the brewery collapsed. More than 320,000 gallons of beer were released in the area. And for the final fact that I want to share with you, there's a cloud near Aquila constellation that contains enough ethyl alcohol to fill 400 trillion pints of beer. Discovered 25 years ago in the Aquila constellation, the cloud is 1,000 times larger than the diameter of our solar system, and it is 58 quadrillion miles away from us. So probably we won't be able to taste this interstellar alcohol. I hope you enjoyed this production, and I hope you look forward to more in the future. Stay thirsty, my friends. Cheers.